July 7th. It's 2022. This meeting is being held by remote video conferencing, and as is our custom, we are going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So we can all stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Let's see, we have policy committee members. Dr. Wisniewski is joining us through, and Kathy Robine and myself are here in the building. We also have Mr. Earl Campbell online with us, Mr. David Stribinger, and Robin Cushenberry is in the room with us also. All right.
I have to get back in the board docs. I'll just
Okay, that's right. So we need to approve the agenda.
I can't remember.
So Rachel,
I move we approve the agenda. Is it supposed to be Kathy G?
Second.
great, thank you. So we have Ms. Robine approving a motion to approve the agenda and Dr. Wisniewski seconding it. Any discussion?
No, ma'am.
Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Right? Aye. Right, unanimous. Thank you very much. And public comment, Ms. Cushenberry? No public comment. Next on the agenda is approval of the March 31st, 2022 committee meeting minutes.
I move that we approve the committee meeting minutes from March 31st.
Thank you. I second. Any discussion?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Hearing no discussion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Right, unanimous. And Ms. Wendy Cartledge just joined us in the room here. So thank you, Wendy. This is great.
Glad to
Appreciate
see
you all. Appreciate you being here.
Glad to be here with you.
All right. The very first thing on our agenda is to discuss GC 2.15. So we were asked to take a look at this. Actually, it came to us through a discussion the board had when the technology committee wanted to change some items in OE 17. And so it was a conversation during a board meeting as well, wait a minute, can we just do that? Since this is an OE, do we have to have pre-readings? And so in preparing for today's meeting, so it was sent to us to take a look at it. So in preparing for today's meeting, I looked at GC 215, and that talks about how to revise or amend a policy. My recollection back when we were working on these policies, was it 2 years ago? My recollection is that we got rid of the required 3 readings and put this in its place. Does anyone else have that recollection? Because I did not see anywhere else in our policies that required 3 readings. Rachel, do you remember? And please, guys, let's make this like a conversation. So we don't, Rachel.
Yeah, no, I remember it used to be 3 readings. And then when it went through, I think we talked about knocking it down to 2. And then this was the final result, was that there could be, I think, a proposal made at a meeting. It would go to policy for massaging, and then would come back for like full board approval to be incorporated or codified.
Right. So if you look in the documents that are in board docs, you can look at what a suggestion could be to add to GC 2.15 to kind of clarify that. Dr. Wisniewski, do you see that? It's written in blue.
Yeah, I was trying to pull up the old version. Do we have that one in board docs too?
Yes,
Is it?
it's right, if
Right
you,
below.
the page right before, you see it?
The page right before.
So in board docs,
Okay, so it's 15.
so it's still number 15. So it's
The board, by majority vote, may revise or amend its policies at any time.
Got it. And then
And
down
those-
next
Yeah.
page. Got it. Okay.
A proposed policy revision will be discussed at one session of the board prior to being approved at a subsequent board meeting. So a draft recommendation is that we change that language to the board by majority vote may revise or amend its policies at any time. A proposed policy revision will be discussed at a board meeting and remanded to the policy committee. The policy committee will bring forth a recommendation to the full board. So remember last meeting we had, I said it's just so much easier to start from a draft.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this wording and see if this makes it any more clear, the process by which we change a policy.
I think that this is good. The only question I would have, and I kind of have it about the way it was written previously, is whether or not, this could just be something that comes up in a conversation at a board meeting on an agenda topic, or does a board member or committee need to have it put on an agenda so that it's reviewed ahead of time by the board? That would be my only question. Is it something that can just come about in general conversation, or is it something that should be more formalized on an agenda first?
Well,
Go ahead.
it says it has to be sent to the policy committee.
Right.
Yeah, so your question is, can an individual send it to the policy committee?
No, I think you're asking, does it have to be delineated on the agenda that this is a possible policy revision or amendment, right?
Right. So that board members are, not, I wouldn't say blindsided, but, unaware of that this was coming forward to even be considered and then remanded.
And then we've given notice and the people board members have an opportunity to explore it if they want to see what other districts do, or I don't.
I mean, I don't know how much, I guess, depending on what it is, there may or may not be information to be even attached in board docs. It could just be very much conceptual. So I really don't know what the appropriate answer is. I think the way it's written right now definitely does make it more clear that it's going to go to policy committee. Policy committee is then going to bring forward the recommendation, and the full board would then vote on it to codify it.
Yeah. So, David, I see your hand. 1 second. So, Rachel, my thought on this was because it said a proposed policy revision, that kind of inferred that there would be a proposal for a policy revision, which therefore would be, either on the agenda or coming out of committee. So, David, do you have some thoughts on this?
Yeah, in my recollection, a lot of suggested policies are not thought about ahead of time. They come out of a different conversation. We're discussing something and then somebody says, we really need a policy on that. So I don't think, you can have it on the agenda ahead of time. I think the wording you have here is fine.
Okay.
I like the word remanded as opposed to assigned. It just sounds more legal. Good. I'm glad I got a smile out of you, Rachel.
Rachel's probably thinking that only happens from the Supreme Court down to an appellate court or something, but.
I know, but Mr. Strivenger, you're right. A lot of these conversations come up during a meeting. They do.
Yeah.
Or from committee. Yeah, so maybe it's fine the way it is and
Okay.
it plays out.
All right. Kathy, any thoughts?
No, I think it is because we talk about it in a board meeting, someone says we have to have policy, someone makes a motion to send it to committee. Committee brings it back.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay, so then do we have a motion to bring this?
That's me, I know.
Yeah. To bring these recommended changes to GC 2.15 to the full board?
I move. I can't.
Go ahead, Rachel.
I was going to say so moved. I think the only question I have is procedural, because we're bringing forward as policy committee a change to policy to the full board. So we're still operating under the current policy, which is that the proposed policy revision would be discussed at one session prior to being approved at a subsequent. So is the procedure now that we're bringing forward this, how we change policies to the board, and it's going to be discussed at one meeting, maybe our next meeting, and then it can be approved. So basically 2 readings of this. Is that everybody else's understanding?
Yeah, I think you're right. That makes sense. So we would need a motion coming out of here to at least bring it to the full board with hopefully unanimous approval from this committee for a kind of a first reading, like what you just said, right, Rachel? Yeah.
Yes.
Ingrid just joined.
Okay. All right.
So
So-
the motion is to bring,
Bring the proposed changes to GC 2.15. How do you want to say it, Rachel?
I just.
If you can just copy and paste that revision to GC 2.15 with the blue lettering, and that could serve as the motion.
You know, maybe maybe Molly can mute you.
Yeah, I don't know what the problem is. I just came on and turned.
Yeah, Earl has that problem too. Sometimes it just doesn't work.
Somebody said they're getting leaky.
All right, so Rachel made the motion, Kathy seconded it. Any more discussion? No, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Okay, unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, the next item on the agenda is GC 2.23. This was brought up because due to COVID-19 and our use of Zoom, we instituted the ability for our constituents to contact us in a board meeting, make public comment via phone. But that is not included in our policy manual. And so the discussion was, should it be? Is this a good thing that came out of COVID and something that we should keep? So if you will look at letter O, this is a draft change to the policy for your consideration. Basically what it is on the initial agenda that is published and sent out, these are the directions that say how to participate in public comment via phone. So my thought was to put that into the policy so that everyone will understand that it is one of those changes that we are keeping. The conversation about doing it via Zoom, I discussed that as I told you guys I would with Robin and a little bit with Molly, and that is a logistical nightmare to send out the Zoom link to everybody. So we decided not to go down that road and just go down the road with the phone calls. So comments?
I think the only comment I have is that it needs to be read for, because I think there's parentheses in some parts and there's no end.
And we.
yeah, I forgot a parentheses on.
Or maybe we can reference to the individual's name instead of saying your.
Okay, I'm sorry. Say that, Rachel, where are you? I'm sorry. What do you think should be changed?
There was a missing closed parentheses.
In the first, under O, where it says email will be provided on the agenda, that's missing a parentheses. But what are?
And what was your comment, Wendy?
I was just saying that we should be saying something to the effect of by the individual requesting the individual's name, phone number, instead of saying yours, and we'll see a phone call, the board clerk will contact the, I don't know if you want to call it the public comment or the individual or the constituent or whatever, but just, does that make sense? Just so that we say,
Yeah.
Individual requesting public comment or the.
We'll receive a phone call?
Yeah,
Oh,
or
that's a
the
great,
board clerk
yeah.
will contact the board clerk will contact the individual.
The individual will receive a phone call.
Yeah.
During public comments.
And be.
The board clerk will contact will call the,
What sentence, where are you? I'm trying to.
instead of saying you will receive, we could say,
I have the individual will receive a phone call during public comments where you will be able to speak and address the board for a maximum of 3 minutes. What are you changing that to?
so we would need to say, you know, should we call the individual receive a phone call during the public comment section of.
How about individuals requesting to speak?
That sounds good, Kathy.
Yeah,
Nice.
public comments, because it will be more than one, not the individuals
That's right.
Individuals.
requesting to speak during public comments, or, will, and then take it from there.
Yes, that
Very
sounds
good.
really good, Kathy, will receive a phone call.
Okay, so we're gonna
Take out where
change,
you'll be-
we're gonna add the ending parentheses, and at the top there, put individuals requesting to speak during public comment will receive a phone call during the public comment section
Yeah, the
of the agenda,
Okay,
section of the agenda,
okay?
and then take out where you will be able to speak.
I'll let you walk me
Okay.
through.
Yeah.
During public comment section of the agenda, period?
Here.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, then where are you starting
And
again?
then, individuals will address the board for a maximum of 3 minutes
Good.
on issues within the board domain.
Individuals will address the board or maximum issues within the board, the forum, okay?
And then on that first one, instead of saying you're here, we would need to say, Kathy and Rachel, what do you think? By saying an email with the individual's name, would make that plural.
Okay, I'm,
Under
Actually
all,
beginning.
oh, we've got to replace that your, which is your name,
oh.
phone
be
number.
accepted between-
I'd write out number too. I'd write out number instead of,
Oh. You can take out your.
yeah.
Request for public comment and participation by phone will be accepted between 5 and 5:30 PM by sending an email with
With the
name,
names.
phone number, and topic to the board clerk.
Yeah, with,
Yeah.
just take it out with
Yeah.
name, phone number,
That's-
write out number, and,
Yeah,
good.
that sounds good.
So can we
Okay.
start at the beginning?
Yes, okay. So the recommendations are
Or under O. it's
under O.
Individuals,
Okay, I'm gonna start at the beginning.
yes.
Okay, so requests for public comment, participation by phone will be accepted between 5 and 5:30 PM by sending an email,
Okay, so I'm not at the same place. So if you
Okay,
start with
Right, go
O,
to O,
starting with the letter O.
on
okay,
page
so,
14.
okay, so instead of saying individuals requesting, we change that to say something else.
That's over
That's over
later. That's later in the second part of it.
That's the second paragraph on page
Trish will
14.
read it. Go ahead and read it.
Yeah.
Just go ahead and read O.
Yeah, okay,
That's not how I had, no. that's
Okay,
not-
No,
well,
that's what you printed out.
I know, I'm,
okay.
Should we say requests?
Okay, so,
Okay, requests, go ahead, Trish.
Yeah.
Requests.
all right, well, not until Rob, I mean, she's not,
Well,
Yeah.
Robin's ready.
I'm not
where you are.
okay,
that's right.
so,
I'm
page
gonna-
14.
Right.
So I'm looking at what I have.
I think you were writing, we were talking about this
There
second
you go.
paragraph.
Yeah,
Okay,
right there.
so right here.
All right, you ready? I'm just gonna read it. Requests for public comments, participation by phone will be accepted between 5:30 PM by sending an email with name. So take out your,
With the name.
phone number, so take out the hashtag there, the symbol for number, and write the word number.
It didn't say that, so what? My document,
Okay, yeah,
I need to, it's PDF, and so what my Word document is here.
Yeah.
So that,
okay. How about if I read it and I'll just give this to you after?
yes.
Give it to you later.
Just read it, I just.
With name, phone number, and topic to the board clerk. The email will be provided on the agenda. That's in parentheses, so we're adding that last parentheses. Next page, page 15, at the top, it will say, individuals requesting to speak during public comment will receive a phone call during the public comment section of the agenda. No, it should be, no, just, because we have two of them, so it should be during public comment sections,
Sections,
right? So I'll take out the, okay?
Oh, because we have in the second part, request between 7 and 7:30.
The next, and there's a period after that. Next sentence, individuals will address the board for a maximum of 3 minutes on issues within the board's domain. The forum will be limited and everything else is the same.
Right.
Okay? Great. I think those are great changes, everybody.
And then we have the second comment section. Request for the second public comments. Could take up the hands.
Yeah, I don't think we're changing any words other than
No.
just taking out that.
Request for the second public comments that progress between 7 and take out that.
Yeah,
percent, right?
excellent. Requests for the, add an S, take out the, what do you call it again?
They call it ampersand, we have the
Ampersand, right?
At
Okay,
the end of the sentence.
in the same manner as above. Okay, I think that's great.
I have a question.
The second
Yes, sir.
paragraph isn't correct.
Well, say, just a minute, Mr. Smith. Rachel, what are you saying?
The second paragraph, still it's duplicate. It has individuals will address the board, be able to speak and address the board for a maximum. So it should just say individuals will address the board.
I'm trying to catch up to where they are, so you're not, look, I'm trying to make the changes now. What she read is the correct. What we have up there is me just trying to catch up and make the changes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Can we reread it?
Huh?
Or you just want?
You can go ahead and reread it and I'll write it,
Okay.
write it as.
Okay, all right, I'm gonna read it one more time for everybody's edification. All right, requests for public comments, participation by phone will be accepted between 5 and 5:30 PM by sending an email with name, phone number written out, and topic to the board clerk. In parentheses, the email will be provided on the agenda, end parentheses. Page 15, individuals requesting to speak during public comment will receive a phone call during public comment section of the agenda. We said sections, didn't we? During public comment sections.
Sections, but the thing, yeah, because we have
Yeah.
7:30 for the
Right.
second one.
Period, after agenda. Individuals will address the board for a maximum of 3 minutes on issues within the board's domain. The forum will be limited to 30 minutes. Next paragraph, requests, adding an S to the word request, for the second public comments.
Can we stop right there for a second?
I'll be finished in a minute, Mr. Smith. Will be accepted between 7 and 7:30 PM, taking out the and sign.
And
In the same manner as above, the second public comments will take place prior to adjournment no later than 9 PM. The second forum will be limited to 15 minutes. Okay? Okay, yes, Mr. Smith?
My question, what is the board's domain? You know, we keep saying that within the board's domain. It seems like everything to some degree should be within the board's domain. So I'm trying to figure out what is in the board's domain. What does that mean? Because I've had.
What does it mean to you? What does it mean to you?
I'm asking you because that's why I'm asking you, because you're on that committee and you put it back in there. I would take it out. So that's why I'm asking you, what does that mean? Because you read it and said that you wanted to stay in there. So I'm asking you to explain why.
Okay, I can give you an example of what is not in the board's domain. I was running the meeting and I let this person speak, but I think I had every right not to. He was a candidate for Beaufort County Council and he wanted to use our forum to introduce himself. Well, that's not in our domain. So I think I should have said, I'm sorry, but your comments are not within our domain. We don't have anything to do with that.
Yeah, but how likely is that to happen, and how regular does that ever happen? I mean,
Well-
that only happened maybe once out of every blue moon. I mean, and some people take it as they're trying to figure out like what do you mean? And to some people, that verbiage comes across to them as offensive and not really as offensive as intimidating. You know, like the board only wants you to speak about certain things. You know, I have certain people have told me that, excuse me, more or less that language is kind of intimidating to them. So
Well-
I'm just gonna put that out there, and I'll that
We're losing you, Mr. Smith.
guys,
You sound like you're in a
legislation intimidating, that didn't.
Okay. Okay, thank you for your comments.
Could you repeat yourself? I didn't hear you. Could you repeat yourself?
Mr. Smith, we can't understand you.
Can you hear me now?
A little bit better.
Okay.
No, we cannot, Mr. Smith. Now we can't hear you. Okay,
Yeah,
Mr.
I said,
Campbell. Mr. Smith, we're going to move on to Mr. Campbell until you can find a spot where we can hear you better. Thank you, sir. Mr. Campbell?
Yes, I just want to say that anything that does not pertain to the school district, then we should not address it,
Right,
period.
right.
Thank you.
Yes, yeah, Mr. Campbell, I think Ms. Robine's example was strong. We also had a speaker talk about his mortgage business. I know he tied it into being available for teachers, but that was a little bit of a stretch. So anyway, I personally feel that within the board's domain explains, is pretty clear, and I don't find it off-putting. No? Okay. Dr. Wisniewski, any thoughts on that?
No, ma'am, I think it's appropriate.
Okay. All right. So any other discussion about the addition of the phone public comment policy?
Is what's on the screen right now what we're going to propose?
No, I'm still trying to make the changes.
Okay.
So I have individuals requesting. So I'll make the changes after so we can move on.
All right. So if we move on to the next agenda item and then come back to this for the vote and a motion to bring it to the full board and replicate kind of the same wording as the previous one. So, okay. So we'll come back to this one. All right. The next one that we were asked to look at is basically to compare the AR, the process of the AR on naming.
Is it GC 3.8?
GC 3.8, OE 8.10, and AR OS 28. Okay. They all have to do with naming new schools, mascots, and colors. And a board member, I believe, brought it to our attention that there may be some discrepancy between it. So let's start with GC 3.8. Basically, it says name new facilities underneath the board will. The board will name new facilities. Before a final vote on naming facilities, the board will contact local community leaders through public notice of a public hearing. So that is our board policy to name a new facility. Then we have OE 810, an operational expectation that says the superintendent shall ensure that any committees appointed to recommend school names understand that A, final approval of school names, mascots, and colors is the sole responsibility of the Beaufort County Board of Education. Schools may not be named for individuals. Adjunct facilities, including athletic facilities, may be named for individuals as specified in District AR. And the board has the right to change the name of any facility or adjunct facility when it deems it in the best interest of the district to do so. Ms. Boatwright, I believe that am I correct that you're the one that brought this one forward and you had some concern that there was some difference between this and OS 28?
I think my concern is that we don't have a policy about renaming or revising. All of our policies center on a new facility that is, to my understanding, unnamed. right? So we're giving it a name. We don't really have a policy on if someone wants to change a name. And I know that on our agenda is a naming of a facility that we're rebuilding. You know, is that a new facility or is it being renamed? And I think we should have a policy on renaming.
So let me just ask you though, when you look at OE8, okay, which, you know, OEs basically are policies, the superintendent shall ensure that any committees appointed to recommend school names understand that the board has the right to change the name of any facility. So does that answer your concern, or do you think, what am I missing here?
No, I mean, I don't know if I brought this up, but I did mention at the time, as we've looked at things like, and I'm looking at what you're saying here, that does seem to cover changing of the name. So yeah, I guess that was my concern. We were talking about this a while ago. So that's why we brought it up. And sorry, I'm at work, so I got to mute you here for a second.
And we did, already rename a facility.
We did the
We
Robert
did,
Smalls.
Robert
We did.
Smalls.
I think that's when she brought this
Yeah,
up.
that came, but that was in here. came to
Right,
the board.
right.
Yeah.
So let's just take a look at the AR, OS 28, and let's just review that to make sure that there aren't, I mean, these have to align together.
And David's hand is up.
Oh, yes, David, please.
Thanks. The two passages that we just looked at
Uh-huh.
don't seem to be consistent. I think you have to take out new, you know, out of that first passage, because they're not consistent, and so it causes confusion. You know, the second part, I think, is where we want to be, but the first part that says, you know, new schools is not correct. We don't want to just approve the name of new schools. We want to approve the name of schools.
So take out new.
I would take the word new out so that it would be consistent between these two.
And that might have been Ingrid's point. So David, I think that's a good call. I mean, whether it's new or not, we're naming facilities.
Right.
Right?
Yep. And I don't know if that comes out of a state statute or not, but our intent is any name change, we want to approve it.
Well, I think the committee, the second part of it where it speaks to committees or whatnot also needs to be looked at.
Okay, Rachel, say a little more about that.
So the second part where it says before a final vote on naming facilities, the board will contact local community leaders through public notice of a public hearing. I don't know if that second part has been in place.
Yeah. Because then the OE 810 says that the superintendent will ensure that any committees appointed to recommend school names. So it does seem that there's a committee that's appointed but the VC3 makes it sound like the board will contact local community members. So it does seem a bit inconsistent, doesn't it?
Right. I'm trying to understand like the process and the steps. And if we are doing naming, renaming, what have you, it looks like the OE speaks to committees and the board policy speaks to us notifying and having a public hearing. So that's two different processes. Now they may serve together in some capacity, but I just don't understand what it is.
Yeah.
David, do you know, when May River High School was named and with our two latest schools, do you know what type of procedure was used?
I can say.
Oh,
No, I can't remember, but you know, Rachel's point is well taken, I think.
Yeah.
Either the superintendent appoints a committee or the board appoints a committee. It's not clear here.
well, this doesn't say committee, which that one that's on. It says we'll contact local community leaders. Yeah, that's not a committee, but so that's why. Robin, what do you remember about how the schools were named?
So when the schools were named, the board, the committee members, they were volunteered at the school, and the board ran the meetings. Like Eva Anderson was the chair of the committee. I think when we did Pritchardville, Laura Bush was the chair of a committee when we did one of the schools. So they had the SIC, they had community members, and they had like teacher or whatever that was on there. So this, they got the information from the feeder schools that were going over to May River. Is they had the SIC and the people that came from that school, and then the board member was the chair of that committee.
So there was no local community leaders. I didn't quite understand that either.
So I think I like what's in OE 810.
Well, there was some community leaders that was on there, like Lisa Solka. I mean, so they were on there, but they came through the feeder school and getting them to be on there.
But if OE 10 says that the superintendent shall ensure that any committees, then that says to me that he will appoint the committees.
Well, but the regulation doesn't say that. So the AR, the regulation talks about the appointment of board naming committee. And it says that the board chairperson will appoint a naming committee to serve in an advisory capacity.
Yeah.
So it's very inconsistent across the regulation, the OE, and the board. I think there may be some easy changes though on the board side of things, because it seems like the regulation and the OE are more in alignment. I think on the board policy, simply making it just say naming facilities, and then that second sentence, if that is changed to speak to the naming committees, then it might be fixable.
Right, so can you recommend some wording changes right there before a final vote on, so take out new, just put name facilities.
Which document are we on?
We're on page 18, is that we're now on GC3.
GC3. Right. 8. So Rachel, did I hear you say just name facilities, period? And then before a final vote on naming facilities, the board will.
Actually, you could probably take the language from the regulation, the OS 28 in Roman numeral 2, where it says board responsibility. It's got 2 sentences. It says, naming new schools and determining their mascots and colors is the sole responsibility of the board. The board will appoint an ad hoc naming committee to suggest possible names, mascots, and colors when the need arises.
Okay, I think those are 2 great sentences, but do you agree with the content that the board will appoint an ad hoc committee to do this?
Yes, because I think that's in alignment with the OE and the regulation already. That's what they already say, basically, is that it's the board's responsibility for forming this committee, but the ultimate final vote that is taken on naming the facilities will rest with the board.
I'm just checking because, and that's not necessarily how I read OE8, because it starts out with the superintendent shall ensure that any committee is appointed. So the superintendent shall ensure that any.
Ensure, but not name. It doesn't say that he appoints them. Just that anyone that is, it's basically his oversight role, or his role in ensuring checks and balances, if you will. You know, he's checking to make sure that the committees that are formed meet this criteria that is in the regulation as well. Because the regulation, I think, also speaks to who is included in that. But the regulation is where I just pulled those 2 sentences about the committees, the board's responsibility in appointing. So.
Okay, I see where you're saying that exactly, and that does make sense. More of once the ad hoc committee is formed by the board, the superintendent operationally will ensure these following things, right?
That's my understanding of it.
So your recommendation then is to change
OE8.
GC
Okay, let me go back.
3.8,
Yes.
GC 3.8 to name facilities, period. And then take those two sentences from OS 28, Roman numeral 2, board responsibility, and add that to the GC 3.8.
Yes, because you know what,
Yeah, good idea.
is about the board's job description. This is nothing with the superintendent. This is her
Yeah,
job.
excellent.
3.8, okay, so.
That's a good recommendation.
GC3.8, name, take off the
Yeah.
Name
facilities,
facilities,
period,
and then
okay?
And then
In that sentence, are we doing something?
just delete the following sentence and replace it with, see here from OS 28, Roman numeral 2.
Okay, let me go there. Oh, out of OS.
Yep. Under board responsibility. You want to use this one?
Yeah.
There you go.
So name facilities, and so OS 28,
Roman numeral 2 at the top, just put those two sentences in.
the board will appoint an ad hoc, start there, okay?
So David, as chair, how do you see this? Do you agree with this? The board will appoint the ad hoc committee?
It makes sense to me. As you pointed out, you know, we'll appoint a committee and then the superintendent will do the execution and bring it back to the committee. for recommendation. My only thing is, do we want to include colors and mascots or not?
Good question. Very good question.
I only was taking directly what was in the AR and the OE.
Names,
I mean, if we want to change that, we can, but
that's
I was
on-
trying to make a more of a painless change.
Well, I agree with the change. I just, I mean, we just had that kerfluffle, so, I so seldom get to use that word.
That's a good word.
And it says in here, the board,
Kerfluffle. We just, so that, there was that thing, colors and mascots, and so
it has,
somehow we have to get clarity.
Right.
oh,
So am I removing before final vote on naming facilities? So that comes out.
So David, just what are your thoughts on this one? I think Rachel said she was sticking to the fact that we were talking about names. But these words do, and these two sentences do include mascots and colors. So what are your thoughts on it?
Oh, I think that's a great sentence, and it certainly hits the point I was trying to make, other than it's more than just name facilities, so. It's name facilities, mascots, and colors. As the first part of number 8.
Right. So there, on number 8, what is still in black, name facilities, comma, mascots, and colors.
oh, that's what this is.
Yeah, we've got that, Rachel. Thanks. I
I was just trying to make it easy if I could, copy and paste.
want to put that in there. She put it in the chat.
There was a sentence missing.
Right.
The first one.
Naming new schools and determining their mascot. So number 8, I'll still start saying naming new schools.
Are we gonna say naming schools? I mean, I don't know.
No new. Leave the word
Yeah.
new out of it.
So for number 8, I'm going to put what you put in chat.
Yes, ma'am.
So we're not going to say naming new schools. It's naming schools and determining their mascots. Because you have new in there, so that's why I'm asking.
Sorry, I just copied and pasted. Take off
Right.
this,
Okay, so name,
because it's when you read the full AR, it talks to renamed or boundary changes and all of the like.
Mr. Earl Campbell?
Yes. Most of our newer schools name mascot, the colors came from the community and the students. and they brought it to the board for approval. I don't think we need to have a committee to do that. That's just my thing.
That's in the AR, Mr. Campbell. It talks about that there'll be students and SICs and principals, and it says what the committee is supposed to be made up of. It's not supposed to be like just a willy-nilly committee.
No. What I'm saying is that Mary River, River Ridge, and Whale Branch, the students came up with the colors and the mascot.
And Earl,
And they brought it to the board.
but we did have a committee that the board, because like with Pritchardville, Eva Anderson was the chair of that committee, and Laura Bush was the chair of a committee when we were naming the school. So we did have a committee, we did have committees with those different people on it, but there were board members who chaired those committees.
I think you're gonna get some pushback from the community on that. That's just my,
Oh, students are included in the committee.
Right.
If you read who's in the advisory naming committee, it has SIC members, student representatives.
It should be named and determined, not naming. But just to stay consistent with all the other things. We kept them in that verb format. Yeah, name schools and determine. Where'd Mr. Campbell go? Earl, you still there? Are you still there?
And David's hand is up.
So Earl, I'm not sure I understand your point, because as I understand this, whoever would be on that committee would include community members, students, teachers, SIC members, all of those people. So can you repeat what you said?
what I'm saying is, let's take Whale Branch. There was no committee for the colors of that school or the mascot. The student did that, period. You know, that's all I'm saying, you know.
Madam Chair,
Yes. Yes, Rachel?
I was going to suggest in the AR, it has who's supposed to be on that advisory committee. So if we want to, we can codify that as a subpart under GC 3.8 and say, and I put it in chat because it's rather lengthy, but it says it's supposed to include but not be limited to SICs, student representatives such as student council presidents, a total of 4 community leaders from those attendance areas, principals, and district office. So if we want to, we could go ahead and say point blank in this GC what type of people are supposed to serve on that committee. Would that kind of alleviate your concern, Mr. Campbell, that they're involved in the process? I think that's been the process in the past.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's fine, but I can tell you, dealing with some of these communities, it can become a headache sometimes. I understand Pritchardville wasn't a problem, you know, but you know, whatever the committee feels, that's fine with me. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay, David?
Thanks. Do we want to tackle logos here?
No.
No.
I mean, yes, I think we need to have a conversation about it. Is a mascot and a logo the same thing? Is a logo a depiction of the mascot?
I do kind of remember that we approved, I think it was River Ridge's logo because there was something about a sword that.
Yeah, we did. That was true.
I think that was a mascot.
That was their
Was
mascot.
that the mascot or the logo?
The shield,
Yeah.
River Ridge Shield.
So that's their mascot?
Yes.
They're the River Ridge Shields.
Raiders.
Raiders.
Raiders, but
The
they're
River Ridge
Raiders. But they have a shield and a sword on the Raiders. So it was
And somebody
So-
that liked the sword.
Oh, I remember all that.
Remember
I
that?
do. I was being a little facetious there. I mean, I knew they weren't the shields, but I mean, like, you know, is that a logo of the mascot, the Raider? So is that your point, David? I mean, what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I think it's an elephant in the room because
Yes.
you know, we just had the brouhaha about the logo. Was the mascot a color? So, maybe we should just define the logo and either say it is or is not under our purview. And if it's not under our purview, then whose purview is it? Is it the community's purview? Is it the students? Is it the, administration? Somehow, I don't think we can let this go without dealing with that issue.
I totally agree with you and love your brouhaha and kerfuffle about all this. I love your two words. Ingrid, what are your thoughts on it? We're having trouble hearing you, Ingrid.
Oh, sorry, I didn't, yeah, there's a bad thunderstorm. One thing is, if you guys are going to take on logos, I have a little bit of concern of it not being on the agenda per se, because there may have been other people that would want to participate, because it is such a big topic that, is coming around right now. So it might be something for the next policy meeting.
Or maybe a work session.
So when you look at, okay, so you're suggesting that the OE 8.10 and all these things that have to do with naming new facilities and mascots and colors, that we should specifically have said logos on the agenda? Because all three of the documents deal with naming facilities, it mentions mascots.
Correct. I think that my concern would be if it came to the board that the policy committee added language or deleted language or changed language regarding logos, given the tremendous amount of attention that's getting on the board. It was not clear to me looking at the agenda that we were going to branch into that area. So I am not opposed to it. I'm here if you guys want to talk about it. But one of the, it's public comments, it's, all those things. This is a pretty touchy subject to not have it clearly delineated on the agenda, so that if anybody wanted to speak on this issue, they could. I would be surprised if we didn't have public comments if the policy committee was reviewing logos and how the board was going to handle it. But that's just, if you guys want to get into it, I don't think that there's a clear cut discrepancy on the agenda. I just think it's
no, point well taken. Point
hot water.
If the committee thinks, that it probably would be better to make sure that we have it more delineated on the agenda, I would recommend that we cease working on this entire part and make it more comprehensive, including logos at our next meeting. Instead of agreeing to the changes for this and then going back and saying, well, let's add into this, just have this whole topic, but include logos at our next meeting.
Because I don't even know.
I don't think they can hear you.
I was just saying it's always been mascots and colors. I don't ever, this thing about logo, I'm not sure what a logo is supposed to be, but it's mascots and colors. So I don't know if all schools have logos. It's just.
Well, I think, I personally don't think mascots and logos are the same thing. And I think that if you're a middle school principal or a high school principal, your mascot can be a bear. And one year the bear is, on one uniform, that's what we got into at Beaufort High School. But I think if we take away the school's individual ability to interpret their mascot, I don't agree with that. Well, having been a school principal, and when the kids come and the coaches say, okay, this,
Right. So I think it's that very conversation that Ingrid is suggesting needs to be notified and noticed to the public so that people can have public comment. And not necessarily saying that we have purview over logos, but having this discussion. Ingrid, am I encapsulating that?
Yeah, very nicely.
Okay. Rachel?
I was gonna say, I think that the logo conversation is separate and apart from the work that we're doing right now, because I think what we're doing right now is trying to bring the AR, OE, and GC into alignment. I think the logo would be an addition to that conversation, and I don't know if there's any ARs out there that speak to logos, and I'd like to see them.
No.
Okay, good point. So you're suggesting that we go ahead and continue and bring forward to the full board about this, but have another meeting around the idea of what is a mascot versus a logo and how does that fit into our OE and our GC? Is that right, Rachel?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you think, Kathy?
I agree.
Okay. All right, so let's move forward then with making these changes based strictly on this, and the conversation about logos will be a future topic for our next meeting. And how does it play into what are our policies and ARs? All right, any other suggestions about the changes to GC 3.8?
Can I ask a clarification? Because I've been missing, we've got bad thunderstorms, so it kind of froze up here for a minute. When we talked about naming of schools, I think that you took the word facility out. Does that apply to gyms, fields, music halls, performance? Are those separate?
So when we took out the word new, so name facilities, and to answer your question, I believe those were considered like adjunct facilities. And
AR,
it's under
OE 8 and
10C, right?
yep.
So OE 810C talks about adjunct facilities, including athletic facilities, may be named for individuals as specified in the AR. So R, OS 28, Roman numeral 5 talks about naming adjunct facilities. Names of adjunct facilities are sole responsibility of the board. And then it goes on to, has a few more paragraphs.
So there's no community input then on adjunct facilities. And I'm sorry, I don't have my stuff with me here, making you guys like quote it out.
Let's see.
But the community took it to the board.
Community organizations or local businesses, subject B, look at B.
It's funny from a distance.
Wait, that was
C says made to the school improvement council.
So requests for naming adjunct facilities will be made to the SIC of the school where the adjunct facility is located and must be endorsed by at least a 2/3 vote of the school improvement council before the request is presented to the board.
Okay.
The presentation shall include a descriptive history and so on. So how does that comport with what we have?
So it doesn't look like there's a committee formed for adjunct facilities. It's a different process.
Yeah.
It sounds much simpler. So, and I apologize for not having it in front of me, but it sounds like that comes from the SIC, but there is a requirement that there is community and student and school staff input.
Right. The SIC, it goes through the SIC.
Yeah, because one of the things reason I mentioned a while ago about, having a good policy, as I'm watching Robin type in real time, about this stuff is there's a lot of controversy about it right now. And where school boards have, gotten mixed up in bad situations is when the community feels like they were not participants. So I just wanted to make sure that it sounds like, I think that makes all kinds of sense. I just want to make sure that we did have a community aspect for those kinds of naming rights as well.
well, I misspoke though. B says, may be named in honor of worthy individuals, community organizations, or local businesses. So things could be made, names could be in honor of community organizations. It doesn't say the community's involved in that, but I do see the school improvement council. Every school improvement council has at least one community member.
No, I think if the naming comes out of the school improvement council, I think that to me, that constitutes adequate community involvement, because people can come to SIC meetings and listen and talk and send emails just like they can to the board. So, just so we don't end up in a controversial situation that we weren't aware of.
Well, and Ingrid, it goes on to say too, the board, letter E, the last statement on this, the board may choose to consider the school improvement council's request without further community involvement, which also means you can send it right back to them and say, you know, only 3 people were at your meeting that voted on this, you know, go back and look at it and come back to us again.
Yeah, I do think that's important in given the climate of today to make sure that everyone has a chance to weigh in if they want to. when
Right,
something is named.
Rachel?
Madam Chair, my apologies. I do have a hard stop and I have to leave in just a second, but I wanted to say this real quick. It seems that on the naming of schools, whether new or not, is referenced in the AR presently, as well as the adjunct facilities or sports facilities is also referenced, and they seem to follow 2 different types of guiding principles. So I think that we may need to also discuss adding some language into GC that is referencing the adjunct facilities and the process for that, because the ARs are really supposed to be guided by policy. So I just wanted to make a comment that along with the logo conversation, I think we need to discuss the adjunct facilities as well at a future meeting.
Okay, so I know you have to go, Rachel, but you don't feel that the changes we've made to GC3 naming facilities, that takes care of that? Whether it's a new facility or an adjunct facility?
No, ma'am. In reading the AR for adjunct facilities, it looks like there's some different types of processes. It doesn't look like there's a committee that's formed, and the way the AR reads right now is that there's other steps that are taken for adjunct facilities, and it looks to be a little bit more loose. So I don't think presently what we have here for the changes to GC 3.8 fully encompass the adjunct facilities.
Okay. Kathy, any thoughts on that?
You know, I adjunct facilities, it seems that when a facility is built, we go through this process. And from my experience, the naming of the adjunct facilities comes after the facility is built, right? And people, like when Herbert Blaze, when they wanted to name the state, so that came through the SIC.
But I think Rachel's point is that
we don't have
this
that
doesn't
in
address
here.
it. What we have right now doesn't address it. So, which is kind of why I was hoping that we might put this entire topic aside. You have to leave, and I don't, it's obviously ballooning, and we need to maybe even next week, if anybody's available, just to focus just on this, because I do believe we're going to have some adjunct facility naming requests come in front of us very soon. So are you okay? I mean, we're not going to have any board action on this particular thing today, but we'll address it and adjunct facilities and logos at a soon to be scheduled meeting.
That's good with me.
Okay, Kathy?
Sure.
Okay. All right.
Great.
So Rachel, thank you. Sorry you have to go, but thanks for all your input. It's so valuable. All right. The next OE 6.16. Okay, so OE 6.16, David is probably rolling his eyes because I have been a dog with a bone about this. This is the one that just didn't make sense to me with the way that we currently are doing like our capital improvement 8%, because I thought they conflicted. So OE 6.16 says roll all unused 8% funds forward to the current bonding cycle and reduce the current bond issuance accordingly. David, not to put words in your mouth, I'm trying to recall your words. You didn't see there as any conflict with this, but a draft recommendation to add on to this is just unless otherwise directed by the board, which is a recommendation which would cover all possibilities of if there are any question about how to use any unused 8% funds.
And this is what we did this past time when we decided not to, roll those forward into the bonding cycle and reduce the amount because of the enormity of what needs to be done. We had money left and we said, let's put that, we took a vote, there was a motion, and we the board voted to use it on additional projects or that were below the line or whatever, to add it to that pot. So by adding this statement, says, if the board decides to do that, it gives us the room to make the decision based on our economic needs.
This works for me in cementing it and clarifying it. Kathy, Kathy came up with the wording and I thought it was succinct. But David, I'd really appreciate your input on this, and Mr. Campbell, I don't know who else is on, Ingrid.
I think that's a very valuable addition. The point of it was that the board needs to be able to decide where unused funds go. They were languishing, we didn't even know about, which is what prompted that board motion. So I think the wording you're suggesting is exactly right.
Great. Any other comments, Mr. Campbell?
No, that's fine. I'm fine with that.
Okay, cool, great, and
Mr. Smith.
who's on? Mr. Smith or Ms. Boatright, any other thoughts on this? Nope, hearing none. Okay, Kathy, you want a motion?
Yes, so what I'm making a move. I move that we present to the full board amendment OE 616, adding the words unless otherwise directed by the board.
I'll second that. Okay.
Put that right here.
Yeah, well, no, I you know what, just one second. So, any other discussion? No?
Okay.
All in favor? Aye.
We can just clear that.
Right. So Robin and I talked about this, and we were thinking that perhaps to make it really clear, all right, is that after it passes the board, that she would add another from board action, just so you can see how it evolves.
Yes, that's great.
How it evolved.
Great.
Okay?
Yes.
All right, excellent. Thank you all. And then, I did ask Robin just to put in OE 17, because this is what was brought to us with the question about how do we pass this? How do we, does this have to go through 3 readings? And I feel that we took care of that with our very first motion today, GC 215, that it has been sent, this has been sent back to the policy committee and then will be brought back to the full board. But I was hoping that we might have some comments on policy, on the thoughtful part of the content part of this. Do you see the difference? They want to change the technology committee wants to change from administrative technology to technology services. And this would be OE 17.
This is what's current.
And yeah, this is the current.
17 is the current.
17 is the current one, and this is the first draft of what they want to change it to. And they brought it forward to the full board, and we weren't sure whether the full board needed 3 readings or what needed to happen with it, so it was sent to us. I think we have taken care of that or disposed of that concern by working on GC 2.15 today, which we said, this is the process by which something gets changed, a policy gets changed. Do we, as a policy committee, have to pass judgment on the content or just the process? That's my question. Or is it the full board that passes judgment on the content?
And Ms. Fidrich, just as a comment, this was discussed in technology committee and approved by the technology committee.
Right, and unanimously, right, Ingrid?
Yes, unanimously.
Right. So that's why it feels kind of out of our, we'd be reading it out of context. We would be reading it strictly like we would during a full board meeting, which is going to happen anyway.
Right.
So I didn't feel we needed to unless someone else feels we need to.
I think it just goes to the full board.
I agree. I agree. Any comments about this? Was that something?
Not that I can see.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know that we need to have any action coming out of committee regarding this because we've already disposed of the concern with GC 2.15.
Right.
Okay. All right, let's go back.
So for process.
Yeah.
So if there's no action, then we would put this on the agenda coming out along with the other items that we're proposing to change in the policy.
No, okay, good question. So this was sent to us to determine how does this whole thing get changed?
And this changes because it will go from administrative technology to technology services. And the whole OE has now changed. So that's changing your policy. So since we've changed other policies, do we put this in as one of the other policies that have been changed? Because we've changed
Right,
words
that's
and
what you're
stuff.
saying. I would think so. And then the whole board looks at it and then the subsequent meeting,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
How we change the process on 2.15 would then now be applied. Are we saying the same thing?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think so.
Oh, all this goes away? The old?
The old 17 would go away and be replaced with this one,
With this one.
along with the other changes that we've made to the the other policies, additions and subtractions that we have made.
Thank you for asking that, Robin, because what we just said is the policy committee will bring forth a recommendation to the full board. So we do need a recommendation that OE 17 be administrative technology be replaced by technology services.
And all of this would become
Right.
the OE 17.
Right, thank you, Robin,
Okay,
thank you.
so I move that, the OE 17, the current OE 17 administrative technology be replaced by, a new
OE 17
OE
technology
17
services.
technology services.
And I'll second that.
Okay,
Any other discussion?
I was just gonna ask if we could make it consistent with the other OEs with capitalizing superintendent and then.
I'll do the
Numbering the
I will
one,
do
two, three.
the documentation.
Okay.
yeah,
Oh,
absolutely. It
absolutely.
should say shall instead of.
It
Yeah,
should.
okay.
Yeah,
Just so-
excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. I think that's
Thank
good
you.
changes.
Thank you.
Okay.
With the proposed, so do I say with the proposed technology services? The title is going to be technology services
Right.
At the current, let me see,
with.
current OE 17.
I move that the current OE 17 administrative technology will be replaced with technology services.
Yeah, take out the will be, just put, be replaced, not will be,
Okay,
be replaced.
be replaced with technology services.
Hooray.
Tricia, you second that.
I did, yep. Okay, any other discussion about that? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Excellent work, everybody. So now we need to go back to, no, we don't, because we're going to have a totally different meeting just on all of that. I wrote revisit, but okay. All right,
So we do need to revisit it. Let me go back and make sure
but we're going to revisit the whole thing.
the whole thing. Okay,
Yeah.
so we let, okay.
Initially, we were gonna go back and revisit once you had it all typed in, and then the adjunct and the logo, so we
So then
decided
we're
to
gonna
just
do
do
that.
it. Yeah, all right, so discussion of future meeting dates. I would like to meet sooner than later because, I think we need to get this,
So finance is not
taken
meeting
care of.
finance is not gonna have a meeting on the 14th. So I'm proposing next Thursday, the 14th.
I can do Thursday the 14th,
Okay, I can do that.
okay?
I can do that too.
What time is typically good for Rachel? What
We
is,
usually do finance at 5 o'clock on the 14th.
okay, 14th, 5 o'clock. Excellent. That'd be great. And the only thing on the agenda for that will be this.
Logos and Gs are we gonna say logos or not?
Well, I think, you know, what we should say, discussion of, why don't we just say discussion of naming new schools, mascots, and colors? Just put it out there.
Schools, maybe schools.
Make-
instead of new.
Well, you have, yeah, so naming schools, mascots, colors, and discussion about logos. Let's just put it
But
out
we
there.
need the facilities.
And adjunct facilities.
Because that's, we've got the name of school, we got that all down,
Right.
really, it's the adjunct facilities.
Mascots, colors, logo.
And adjunct facilities. And so all the work we've done today on, you know, naming schools and stuff, we'll just solidify that and then move into the other two
So
areas.
that's the only GC one that we're gonna take off. But for Tuesday's meeting, we're bringing forth the other changes that we have made. Those are the things I put on the agenda.
Right, GC 2.15, GC 2.23,
So it will be GC 2.15 and GC 2.23 and
OE 6.16,
OE 6.16
and OE 17.
OE 17.
Right, those
Okay.
4 things.
All right.
Okay, so now I have a little note to myself right here, go back to GC 23. Did we get all that typed in? I wrote down, go back to that.
Yeah, I need to do that because
So
we're not.
GC 23, all these, yeah.
Let me process this.
Let's see what.
GC 2.23. Let's see.
Yeah, you were adding a
All
lot of,
right.
it was page 14.
Well, on here the changes because
Okay.
we added stuff. Rules, it was O. So start here. Individuals requesting to speak during public comment.
Well, now,
During-
can you go back to the beginning? The beginning, there's another paragraph prior to that.
Okay, so
No,
that's
you
what's
don't have it
missing.
on there.
So that's what's
So,
missing.
Right
Okay.
here. See right here, request for public comment.
Okay, so that's what's missing in
That
this
is
thing.
missing, okay.
Request for
Yeah, let's pluralize, let's put requests for public comment.
public comments.
Yep, there you go, okay.
Participation by phone will be accepted between 5 o'clock and 5:30.
And could you do a P period, M period, just
For
because it's
both
just
sides?
more official,
Mhm.
yeah. Remember when I used to be writing IEPs and I was watching and writing? I made so many.
Yes.
My
Name,
wife talks about it all the time.
phone number, yeah, and topic to the.
Oh, you were stars. You did this.
The email will be provided on the agenda.
Okay, the period inside the parentheses.
Yeah. Let's take P out of here because it's the same. Okay, then it goes individuals, so.
Okay. Individuals requesting to speak during public comment sections, because there are two, will receive a phone call during public comment sections of the agenda. I know it's repeating, but
Phone call during,
public comment sections of the agenda.
agenda period. So
Then-
this goes away.
Individuals
So then just say individuals.
will address the board
Individuals will address the board.
within the same for a maximum of.
Okay, we missed the, okay, so this goes away.
Yeah,
It's
that goes
repeat.
away. Right.
That goes away. Individuals requesting to speak during public comment will receive a phone call during public comment, during the public comment or during,
Okay, but you have that above too. Individuals requesting to speak during public comment, you have that,
so this all goes away here, not.
the one
not-
above goes away, the
Okay.
short one right there, because you have it. And then we might have to just add a little bit, let me read it again, here we go. Individuals requesting to speak during public comment will receive a phone call during public comment sections of the agenda.
The agenda.
Individuals will address the
Should we
board.
say may address the board for 3 minutes, or we say will?
May,
Say
because some
may.
costs, some talk less than 3 minutes.
Okay,
Yeah.
individuals may address the board for a maximum of 3 minutes on issues within the board's domain. The forum will be limited to 30 minutes.
Right.
Okay, then the second part. Requests, good, for the second public comments
Will be accepted.
will be accepted between 7.
Yeah.
I can't see, but you know that and sign needs to come out. If it's there, I can't see because
If it's not there, I took it out.
Okay.
Thank you.
In the same manner as above. The second public comment will take place prior to the adjournment, no later than 9 p.m. The second forum will be limited to 15 minutes. Yeah, I think we got it.
Yeah.
That sounds really good.
So did we have a vote on this?
No,
Okay, so we need to.
Okay, I move, let's see, where is this here?
GC 2.24.
GC
2.23.
2.23.
I move that we, present the changes to GC 2.23 to the, full board. Is that what we want to say, present the changes?
Yeah. I'll second that. Let's present it to them, see what they think. Any other discussion, Kathy?
Nope.
Nope, all in favor? Aye. Unanimous. All right, good. And then this part we'll be visiting, so we'll go back.
And we already have
Pick a date.
15 that we're grading for.
Right, GC 215, GC 223, OE 16, and OE 17. Excellent. And we've already decided it's going to be July 14th at 5 p.m. our next meeting, and that will be hybrid. All right, adjournment?
I move.
I second.
All right.
All right. Thank you, everybody, very
Thank you.
much. Everybody's input was great.